Welcome to the Wealthy Artist Podcast. And I'm your host, Sarah Clanton.
And I'm Wilson Harwood. And we're talking about how to develop your wealth,
enjoy financial freedom,
enjoy artistic freedom,
and live the life you've always imagined. Hi, welcome to the Wealthy Artist Podcast.
It's great to be here. Woohoo. All right.
Coming from Bend, Oregon
Confetti.
today. I just imagine still that we have those little lasers. We talked about that a few episodes ago. Like, pew,
Yeah.
pew, pew, pew.
That would be awesome.
That would be
Laser
cool. I
sounds.
feel like y'all should add that in soon.
Yeah, once we get our post-production budget up, we'll have all these effects.
Kai, Burt, welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I could have some of my own smoke even in the background.
That would be
You
sweet.
couldn't hear it, but
Yeah.
we'd all see it. So
We'd see it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Kai is a great friend of mine. We actually met at Folk Alliance, and we were just talking before this episode how all three of us met at Folk Alliance at the same Folk Alliance. It was the first
But I didn't
one.
meet you, Kai, there.
You didn't meet Kai till right
I don't
now.
think we met. No, that might have been when
But
Wilson
I
went
met
to the
both
bar.
of you.
Wow.
I partied real hard, and I stayed up late and met Sarah.
Yeah. That
Actually,
sounds right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, Kai is an awesome musician from the Northwest. He's put out a bunch of different albums. He's a folk musician, banjo player, guitar player, singer, songwriter. Is doing amazing things. He's also studied music therapy and is now a therapist as well. And yeah, there's just a ton of cool things that we're going to talk about today. So I think you guys are in for a treat.
Yeah,
So
Kai's making
Kai-
the music business work for him.
Yeah. So do you want to give us like a quick bio, Kai, of your life story in 20
Yeah.
seconds?
Ready?
Yeah.
Go.
Where do I start? Okay. Well,
When you were born?
when I was born,
No,
was-
whatever.
I was born in a small village, and yeah, I was born in the Midwest, and it probably speaks to my story a little bit. Not that far from Nashville, really, Fort Wayne, Indiana. And now that I'm a little bit older, I've realized just how motivating that was growing up there, because a lot of my friends who are now not there are all doing very creative things. So I think there was like a group of us that really sort of launched out of our kind of cornfield roots to pursue creative fields. But yeah, I guess my story, I've had a few careers, but music is definitely like the thread that kind of ties them all together and has been going on the whole time. Which I think for me was and I'll maybe we'll circle back to this, but it's kind of a learning curve of sort of seeing myself at one point wanting to dive into music full time, and then also realizing even just looking at some of my favorite artists, how they've dipped in and out of it and ways they've kept it going while also kind of keeping income coming in and keeping other passions going. So it started off for me, I suppose I started off working as an environmental, like sort of scientist and conservation person, and was doing that. This is in my like early 20s. I'm in my 30s now. I don't have to tell you exactly how old I am, but I'm still in my 30s.
Yeah.
But I was always, so I started playing music I like to think I started playing music when I was actually like 8, because I was always singing. I was told that I was always singing, walking around the house singing, and like it just was innate in me. I don't know. I think a lot of musicians can relate, whether that's an instrument or not. There's just something
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
like I'm like counting the stoplight, or I'm like tapping my foot in the car over and over again, and there's no sound except the sound of my foot. So that was definitely happening. And then when I got into high school, I was in band. I played the cornet, which is like a tiny little
crazy.
trumpet.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I didn't think band was cool. So looking back now, I'm like regretting that. I'm like, I probably could have learned more if I would have stayed in band. But I ended up just wanting to play the guitar. And my sister had left a guitar in her room. She was off in college, and I basically just decided it would become my guitar, which I then told her about 2 years later when she came back to get it. And that was okay, because at that point I knew how to play it. So I started doing that. I started off playing just a lot of blues music, actually. I took lessons from a local blues guy and learned a lot of old blues music. And then that just led me down to like all this different kind of music. I started playing a lot of like Radiohead and a lot of sort of like rock and Zeppelin and all the stuff that musicians, at least several musicians, a lot of musicians get into. And then at one point I lived in Virginia for a little while, and at one point I discovered bluegrass. And that was when I was about in my 20s. And that really, for me, what really struck that chord of why I like that music was the community aspect of it and the intergenerational kind of like passing it down. And so that really showed me at that time, like, oh, wow, music is like a thing that I can show up anywhere and play with people. And there's stories behind it. And I'm playing with younger people and older people. And so that was really when I knew it was just something I had to pursue. But all that said, I basically went through a lot of my 20s really with this like sort of parallel thing going on, like secretly at night I want to be a musician. I'm watching my favorite bands. I'm like, wow, they're so cool. I totally want to do that. And then, but also having this environmental career where I was working on river conservation and those two things were running parallel. And then I'd say that in my later 20s, like I think when I was about 27, I'm a late bloomer. I started a little bit. I started playing open mics then. And I was in a relationship and I basically, my relationship at the time ended and I was like, well, I have a lot more time now and I want to play music a lot more. So I was living in Arizona at the time. I've also lived a lot of places. You'll notice like started in Indiana, went to Virginia, went out to Arizona, and all this time, and now I'm in the Pacific Northwest. So all this time and places has really also informed my music about place in the different regions of the country, which has been pretty cool. But my time down in Arizona, so I basically, when this relationship ended, I kind of had like a existential crisis, like, what do I really want to do? Do I really want to sit in an office? Because that's kind of what ended up happening in the environmental field, was I was just more like working behind a desk. And so I started moonlight playing music and really just kind of like researched a lot on my own, started looking online, like how do people book? Like it felt like totally new to me. I had like zero resources. But slowly and surely I got into a bluegrass band. We started playing in around the area in Arizona. And then somehow through a friend of a friend, a couple of touring singer-songwriters, one from California, one from Colorado, like came through town and they were like, hey, do you want to like open a show for us? And I was like, oh yeah, definitely. So we did this little like kind of cafe bar gig. And they came back that night and we jammed all night. And I just asked them like, how are you all touring? How do you do this? And it didn't seem, it demystified it for me. I think I had this idea that you had to like be big to do that. Like I had no idea about the indie right. kind of realm, and that like quote unquote they were working musicians. I grew up, my dad and mom loved music, but I don't think that they even knew that. I think they were like, you kind of have to be Paul Simon, right? If you're going to be a musician.
Right.
That's what everybody thinks. It's either Taylor Swift or you're, homeless.
Broke. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So that was like mind blowing. So then I like literally, then I created this whole plan. Like in 2 years, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to play music professionally. So I literally did that. I like saved up a bunch of money working in environmental work. And towards the end of that time, I like actually went to a therapist and was like, am I crazy? Can I do this? And she's like, well, you seem really resourceful and, you seem like you're driven, and what's the worst that can happen? And I thought about it and I was like, well, I could just end up broke and, without, I don't know. Like,
I have to just interject here. This is this is a huge reason why we do this podcast. This is like the reason. Like, I just heard you say that you went to therapy because society has taught you that following your heart is not the path. Mm-hmm. And you had, like, oh my gosh, like I think it's so awesome that you like just blew all that shit out of the water and you were like, I'm going to do this, and you did it. And no matter how you came to do it, and you found like awesome support to help you like shuffle that stuff. But I just think like it's so important for us to know that like if that desire is there, there's a reason that desire is there. And I just think it's so cool. So I just want to take this moment to celebrate your awesomeness.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, and it was scary. I mean, it was like I had a whole career. I had behind me, but the part of myself that was music driven is, well, now it's like my whole self, and I've realized that it was like something that needed to just fill throughout, and it was like, yeah, it was speaking a lot. So ultimately what happened, I ended up towards the end of my job, I was like, I'm gonna move into the woods. There's a story there, but basically some river guiding friends were like, oh yeah, there's this spot in the state forest where you can just live there. And I was like, let's do it. So I like literally moved out in the woods. I camped for 2 months, and then I lived in a trailer that my friends had. And so I saved a bunch of money, and it was weird because it was like I was going to this office job, and then I was like coming back, going to my storage unit, grabbing my instruments, going out in the woods, playing around a campfire, and then going back, and like nobody knew at work that I was just like living in the woods.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and so then I
That's so cool.
So I guess this is a funny part of it, but like I told folks I was going to go to South America. I thought I might, but really I wanted to go on tour. And my last day at work, they actually brought me a cake of like South America.
Oh my gosh.
So I felt really bad. I was like, oh, I don't want to lie. I'm not saying you should lie anybody, but it's just a weird job and hard to explain to folks. But since then, they found out I was playing music. So then I quit, and basically, I hopped on board with a group of singer-songwriters these similar people I mentioned earlier from Colorado, and there were about 5 of us, and we did our first tour through Arizona, New Mexico, part of Utah and Colorado, and I did it with them, and one of them, Gabrielle Louise, I think Wilson, you might know her.
Yeah, I do know her.
That's who I had met, and so I toured with them, and that was cool. And then after that, though, I kind of realized like this touring thing isn't so tough. Like I think I've got it. I want to learn about it. I actually went to Indie on the Move at the time, and I kind of used them.
Yeah, I remember using them as well.
Yeah, this is like way back now.
Yeah,
and,
good 6-7 years ago.
Yeah, and I used them a bit, and then, gosh, it's a long story, but I basically ended up doing a big Kickstarter and doing a big tour where I played shows for the homeless with a friend of mine. Oh, cool. My friend Melanie, who was part of this group of people. And it's funny because this group was like, Gabby had been playing for a long time, like she was playing since she was 19, but the rest of us were, I don't know what it was, we were all like at that age, like this, we're all quitting things to like pursue music. There were like 4 of us doing that. So it felt really validating to be like, cool, I'm not the only one here that like is switching it all up to do something.
Was your tour named after that by chance or anything? It's really cool thread that brought you guys together. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so then after that, I realized I really want to move to a music community. Like Arizona wasn't quite, I mean, there's some great musicians there. I have actually a lot of great friends there, but I wanted something bigger. And so I picked Portland more or less and drove up there in my van, like a lot of people do that move to Portland, which I realized. And I lived in my van up there for on and off. And then eventually, I started kind of getting into the community, doing odd jobs, and playing with some amazing musicians. And that's when I started really recording and getting, got an EP out that at that time, I think that's when I had gone to Folk Alliance.
Yeah.
And met Wilson and Sarah, you were, again, I didn't get to meet you.
If you saw a girl walking around with a dragon on her cello case, that's me.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, I feel like I would remember that for sure.
Could you talk more about how you did your tour? You talked about going around and playing for the homeless. What did that look like? Because that is a totally different kind of tour. And that definitely sounds like inspired action. And it's just, another part of your path, but that's just so beautiful. Can you tell us more about that a little bit? I'm intrigued.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So that's when I was, so I stopped in Colorado for a little while, and I was living in Paonia. This was after Arizona.
Oh my God, I've been there. I love the espresso at that little coffee shop. Oh my God, I can't believe that. Anyway, that's so cool weird. Town. I can't believe we've never met.
Totally. I know. It's like we're having all these parallels.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So it was, it was kind of an idea that came from realizing that we weren't well-known musicians, that we were going to try to build, I was a songwriter, and my friend, she was sort of a support musician, and she liked my music, and she's like, and we had great harmonies, and she was like, I'd love to tour with you. So the more I thought about it, I was like, well, we might get some gigs that, we may get gigs that go well, we may get gigs that really suck. What would make it meaningful? Is it just those gigs, or is there more to that, I guess? And so through that process, I thought about, like, it'd be really cool to do something during the day to kind of connect us more to the community. And then I was like, who's a population that doesn't get music, like, at all? And I was thinking, like, a lot of homeless shelters. We actually also did, like, retirement centers a bit too. So it was like, let's just go to a town. We'll play the gig. We'll hopefully make some money playing a gig. But then during the day, we can just play for folks that really want to hear music.
Yeah.
So we did like 20, I think it was like 25 different locations from like the western part of Colorado through mostly California, some in Oregon, and some in Washington.
Wow, that's a big tour.
Yeah, it was 2 months, and we lived in the van. The van was named Huckleberry. It was a 1987 Toyota that I finally got rid of, or I shouldn't say got rid of, because we were good friends.
Yeah.
I finally let her go.
Yeah.
A year ago. But yeah, the shows were super meaningful. And honestly, at the time I was like, how can I like formulate this into like an actual thing, like maybe a nonprofit or something that connects musicians to social causes when touring, which I think there's some things like that might exist still.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But we just kind of, and so the Kickstarter basically just funded our trip. Like it just paid us to do the trip.
Cool.
Yeah, and so it was super powerful. I mean, we played for people that were like, they cried. I mean, they had tears because it was just so
Sounds
moving.
very therapeutic.
It was very therapeutic, yeah. I remember one show in Seattle. This lady really liked Woody Guthrie, and we were kind of, folky Americana, and she was like telling me all how she grew up on Woody Guthrie and how much she loved him, and I could just see that she'd been through a lot in her life. And then at one point, she asked me for a CD, and she's like, I can't afford it though, and kind of started to walk away. And I was like, you can have a CD, like, here you go. And I mean, that to me put a lot of meaning in music. So that was a cool starting point.
That's a great starting point. And I think a lot of artists wouldn't have necessarily seen that. And I think maybe the fact that you had all this sort of life experience ahead of you helped you see these things in a different way, which is really interesting.
And you use the Kickstarter to fund the tour so that you can make an impact.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what's so resourceful, right? Is that you're like, hey, we want to go out because touring makes us super happy, and this like is what we're driven to do. And you gather that support, and we're able to go. I just think, unlike many layers, like you're doing this in the daytime while you're probably playing other shows at night, you said. So, but I think that is like, that in a nutshell is like how, I don't know, I think it's how it's all needs to and does work, especially now at this like renaissancing, is that a word, music industry. Like we have direct access to our fans, to our community, and people want to rally around good. There's some evil shit out there, but there's also good, and that's always how it's going to be. So I don't know, I think that's really cool, really insightful.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, what's the, so continuing on there.
Oh, yes.
With your story here, because it's really fascinating how it sort of evolves and keeps going.
Yeah.
Like, it's still going, as all our stories are, I suppose, but yeah.
Because
so,
go ahead, Kai.
Yeah, so I guess just after that, I landed in Portland, and I'd imagine you two have experienced this too, but like this moment doing something creative where it's like you're so open, like you're open to whatever's coming to you. And there's times I know where we feel sort of blocked and things don't come to us, but then there's times where we're like open, and then suddenly things are sort of manifesting, I guess. And I don't always know how to turn one on or turn one off, but I know at that time I was very open, and it was like, all of a sudden I'm in Portland. Now I'm meeting these amazing musicians, like just such a high caliber. And I'm recording this EP. I'm putting that out. I got a great review in No Depression at the time. I'd hired a publicist, and it was like, wow, this is happening. This is really exciting. And then basically I just kind of laid in Portland for a few years. I started teaching music at a music school. and was like substitute teaching. I was still using a little bit of my environmental stuff. I've always suffered from having like a lot of interests. So like
I laugh because I can relate.
Yeah, we're guilty as well.
And also like I always thought of creativity as like, I used to think of it as like, oh, it's this thing that like doing music is creative, but really now I just think like, how can I live a creative life? You know, like how am I constantly like, I don't know, like how do I wake up in the morning and everything I do has some element of creating. So, so yeah, I was in Portland for a while, and I was working on my album. So I put out an EP, and then let's see here. Time is like a weird thing right now with all this pandemic, but I put out my album in 2019, my first kind of full-length album. But that was in the works like the whole time I was in Portland, and did a Kickstarter for that again and got that funded, which was really exciting. But through all that time of like teaching music and gigging, I was gigging a ton. And I was living super meagerly, and it was really a switch for me. I went from like having a salary job to like really hustling, and it was awesome. I mean, I felt for whatever reason it lined up really well with I have a lot of values around just minimalism and sustainability, and so I was like, cool, I'm kind of like forced to do that. I just like I'm being creative. I'm finding things. I mean, Portland's got a great kind of scene for that, of just finding
more in alignment, sounds like.
Yeah, I was feeling very in alignment, which I think, you know, we all have the power to change in that way. And so that was really empowering to be like, yeah, I stepped into something scary and now it's working. But through that process, I was actually going to a life coach, and that person was like really helping me with like music and how does music fit into your life? And, you know, do you want to do it full time? And I mean, a big part of me really, like, even to this day, like I still, hopefully when this pandemic is over, I'd like to tour again. And that's a big part of my plan. But at the time, I think I was realizing like, I also wanted to bring in like a sort of coaching or therapeutic thing to helping people. And I was like, that could be a really great thing to do with music, actually. Because I was giving lessons to kids, and I was doing all these things with people, and I was good at it, or it seemed like I was. And so through that process, I was like, as crazy as it was, I was like, I'm going to go back to school, and I'm going to become a therapist, a mental health therapist, with the idea of like still being a musician and combining the two. So like I can take time off to tour, I can be self-employed, I can make what I feel like is what I'm worth in terms of helping people, but then I can tie all that healing and all those things I'm learning back into my music and use that as that outlet too.
I'm imagining all the booking possibilities of the people that are in alignment with that, you know, who are in alignment with your why, and not just, you know, the songs, which like makes it all more impactful, I think.
Yeah. So basically went back to school down in Eugene and got a degree in therapy. And now I work in that field. So I work with clients around mental health. Cool. And like all this experience from the environmental field and working as an activist and community person in that way, to being a musician, interacting with tons of people, to now being in this role has just given me such a well-rounded ability to help others. And we were talking about the story continuing. So the story for me now is I put out another album this, February. It was a live album, which was from a performance I did in Portland at a place called the Old Church. It's like 100-year-old plus church. And I had a full band, and it was awesome. So I put that out on Bandcamp. Woo-hoo! Yay, Bandcamp.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Bandcamp this time around. So I put that out, and but now I'm working as a therapist. So I guess where I'm trying to align myself now is like, I want to work, you know, if you want me to get into the details of this, basically you just want to work like 4 days a week or something like that, helping folks, playing shows on the weekends, and eventually taking time off to tour. And that way I have the balance of like being in community, helping others, also being able to go out and travel and play music. And I need both. I just need both of those things.
And you can have what you want. We talk a lot about identifying what you want, and like having a coach is, I think everybody needs a coach or a mentor or someone like just to help give you perspective on what you're doing, to help you walk through those questions. Okay, what the hell do I want? Like, what does success even look like to me, you know? And like knowing, I mean, Wilson and I are always talking about like how we can work less and be more impactful with our work. And, you know, so we can show up more rested for it. And, you know, how much do we want to work? How much do we want to do? So I think it's just, you know, it's very cool that you're like, hey, this is what I want. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Those are important questions.
And I think it's fairly clear, but you know, there's days like, the pandemic's kind of shifted a lot because I was super excited to play a lot, and actually was in a country band right before it happened, and we were opening for some big bands, some touring bands, and we hadn't toured yet, but we were a great band called the Holy Smokes, and I think that project may still happen. But yeah, I was just excited, like, wow, I'm really finding the synthesis of like these different parts of myself, like these parts of myself that need to write songs and need to play music probably like till the day I die, and these parts of myself that really want to help people, like the homelessness project I did. And eventually I'm hoping to have like songwriting camps for kids and adults that's therapeutic. And then another dream I have is like making an album around environmental stuff, around river restoration. So like sometimes I know with talking about becoming a musician, it's like, what's my story? I feel like that's so much of it. It's like, what's my story as a musician? Like, what am I trying to offer others? And I can look at that through a music lens, but I can also step back and like look at, well, wait, what are these other areas of my life and how do those tie in? And how do I bring an audience in from those areas? Because those are the people and the places I really want to affect change.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Nailed it.
Awesome.
Yeah,
it's like so much of what I think we value with this podcast is, honestly, I want to say it's like the wisdom of maybe having a little bit more time doing this type of thing and having a little bit more time on this earth, that hopefully younger artists and musicians will see and be like, hey, I don't have to like think there's only one way to make my career. And in fact, like your career will probably succeed more when you're your most authentic self. And when you follow, when you follow what makes you happy, and even just hearing you talk about it, I'm like excited for you.
Yeah,
and I think our listeners probably are too. They're like, oh man, this is so cool that Kys like doing all this. And all three of us, I think, have started out as like maybe wanting the stereotypical artist dream. I think we can all agree on that. Like I was in high school.
We're taught to want that.
Yeah.
Like we're not taught to think for ourselves.
Right.
It's a whole nother situation. I won't go there.
Yeah. And then, we like come into I think for me, when I hit 30 or maybe even 28, I started to really question everything that I thought was true. And question things because I wasn't like super happy. And like with you weren't super happy with your job.
Same thing. It's that Saturn Returns or something.
It was a freaking Saturn return. I know. I wasn't gonna get woo woo, but there it is.
We always have a how woo are you? In fact,
woo-woo.
I have a thing I wanted to try.
Yeah.
Where?
Do it.
Okay.
Sarah's gonna go get something here.
So this was I don't want to cut this short. I don't want to cut the story. We're not. Are we? Where are we?
We're not done.
We're just here, I guess.
We are just here.
Well,
I wanted to. This is like, instead of oracle cards. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see me doing this. But I have a little box here. It's called Spark Magic: 50 Ways to Find Your Power, and it's just kind of like fun little exercises. And I thought it could be something like, I don't know, I could just pull one for the show today. See what happens.
Yeah.
They're little matches. They look like matches. Cool. This is really great. I like this one. This is very therapeutic. It says, write out all your struggles and burn or destroy them.
Yikes.
I think that's really awesome when you're facing your, like, maybe you're like struggling with like, oh my God, I want to move to Portland. Am I insane? Like, I want to be a musician. Am I insane? Like, writing down like what we're afraid of, like that's something you walk through. I think that's so great. Like, write it down so you can burn it and destroy it. I love that. Write out all your struggles.
Cool. I'm gonna light some shit on fire right after this podcast.
Having a fire tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. You can just like throw a paper and people be like, "What is that?" It's like, "Oh, it's all my struggles."
It's all my struggles.
Sarah, actually, you just brought up a story I just have to share because
please do.
Short, but like, so when I was quitting my job to play music in Flagstaff area, Arizona. I had this ceremony, like, and I didn't even plan this, but I was living out in this trailer, and 5 friends came out, and they knew me. I was playing in Flag a lot and around the area, and I got voted like Artist of the Year or something, like up and coming Artist of the Year, which was also very encouraging to quit my job and all that. But my friends came out and they were like, we've all written things that we want for you, and then we're gonna burn it in the fire. And
Cool.
it was like the coolest thing. And one of the guys was really good friends with Nels Andrews. Do you guys know him? He's a singer-songwriter.
No, I don't.
He's a West Coast person but he had said, I remember when we were 20 or mid-20s or something, and he was working construction, and he really wanted to follow his passion for music, and now that's like all he does. And for the most part, teaches songwriting camps around the world and stuff. I think he goes to Folk Alliance. But anyways, he was just like, you can do this. And they all wrote stuff like, we want joy for you. We want financial freedom. We want creativity. It was so moving. It was
That's
so cool.
awesome.
So cool. You sound
Yeah.
like the introduction to our podcast.
Yeah, right.
It's something really
It was
powerful
good.
about ritual. I'm really, the
Yeah.
older I've gotten and the more I've been through and the more I deal with my anxiety and like, and wrestling, like, okay, well, my business is pivoting now and like shit doesn't look at all like I thought it was going to, but there's nothing I can do about that. So I could either be pissed about it or keep going and figure it out. But yeah, I don't know. I've just found these different tools to help me, I don't know, like, yeah, just process stuff. And there's something about ritual, like every morning. And this is something I think we've been almost asking every artist or every person we interview is like, what do you have in your daily life that is non-negotiable it's like essential to your health, which is wealth, as in your day-to-day life. Do you have anything that's like non-negotiable that keeps you going?
Oh, good question. Well, I want to get those matches.
Oh, that's so great. Oh, cool.
Yeah,
These
let's
are
do
a gift
some.
from a
Get
friend.
Spark
That's
magic.
Yeah.
I'm going to write that down.
50 ways to find your, what does it say?
Yeah, I mean, I have some
Find your
rituals. I
power.
meditate, actually. That's something I do. I wake up every morning and I meditate. I use this app called Insight Timer.
Yeah, me too. We should be friends on there.
Yeah, and I play banjo lately. I play a lot of banjo. I've been getting super into like old time banjo, and I've been playing a long time. But I feel like I'm like diving into all the nerdy details now. And
Cool.
so, music's like meditation too. So I'll meditate and then I'll journal. And I've been doing this thing where I write intentions for the day. Like instead of goals, I'll like write like today I want to do something like I've never done, or I want to like feel like, again, practice creativity. So then it's like it takes out the like, oh, I had to do these 10 things, and it's rather like, was I just somewhat creative in the day? And it's like, yeah, actually I was. I played some songs, or I wrote a song. So it's kind of a cool thing I've been doing. Yeah.
Like that. It's like you
That's
set
great.
your intention, and that's the seed for what's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like you're setting your intention for the way you want to feel, which the more I've learned about being magnetic and, like affirmations and law of attraction, all this stuff, like it has to be a feeling. You can't just, you can say it, but it has to really be a feeling. I want, I look forward to feeling this way. I'm trying to not say I want anymore. Like, because I read recently that, and something I was reading, maybe it was Teal Swan's Shadows Before Dawn, but it was about how like saying I want puts up a block, and it's saying it's something you're telling the universe that you want to happen in the future. It's not talking about like it's happening now. So if you can embody really feeling like, I want to feel joy today, I want to feel creative today, like, I don't know, it feels like you're opening yourself up to be open. It's a tricky balance.
Sure.
I want to meditate more. I'm going to try this app, because you guys now you've talked about it a few times, Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, I've been using it for, gosh, I want to say like 5 years now. Like, it's kind of crazy, and it's just become part of my routine. I'm not great at it, though. I'll be honest. Like, as far as all of our guests that talk about meditation, you're the second person within the last 2 weeks who said that their morning routine is meditating in the morning first thing, and I struggle with that. I've always done it in the evening or sort of haphazardly whenever I feel like it.
Do it whenever you feel like
There's
it.
no right way to do
I'll
it.
do it right now.
No, but I do
Yeah.
think there is something to be said about doing it first thing in the morning and having a morning routine in general. We talked about, and I want to work towards that. That's a goal of mine, because setting your mindset up in the morning first thing is huge. And
My
your
brain's on
intention
fire in
for
the
day.
morning.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Yeah, exactly. I wake up and I'm just sort of like, rah, 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 like swipe over a bunch of things, knock them on the ground, like, rah. It could be a little bit more graceful.
Yeah, no. I do better when I take the dog for a walk though than when I just sit and meditate and then go right to work or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
We have a dog now named Capo, like act like the Capo.
yes.
Yay!
That's awesome.
Musical. But yeah, it's cool taking the dog, getting some fresh air, and
you're in a beautiful place.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So, and also like the thing I miss, well, right now and through the pandemic, the thing I miss the most about music is I realized that playing music was like a big body thing for me, like how I move and play and just like having that release. And so like I'm doing some of that at home. I haven't played a live show like out in a while.
Yeah.
And
you sound so like you're so conscious of the importance of the community aspect of music. It couldn't happen. My first mentor told me when I like played my first open mic in my early 20s. I'm a classically trained cellist, and I didn't know about like open mics or bluegrass music or festivals until I was in my early 20s, and it just all was like, you know. But so I don't feel like you're not too late or whatnot. Totally forgot where I was going with that because I'm having a brain fart day.
That's okay.
It drops out sometimes. Hasn't happened in a while. It's bound to happen again on the podcast.
Yeah. It's part of the authenticity of this
totally
podcast.
Forgot, but it happens.
But yeah, well, maybe we should
anymore.
Start to wrap it up, Kai. It's been freaking amazing hearing the story and everything you've had to share with the community here. And I think like the biggest
the community. That's what it was.
Yeah, the community.
Oh my God, thank you, Wilson. You said community, and like you're so conscious of community, and I missed that part about playing live. Like playing at home is not the same as that energetic interaction of people on stage. And that my first mentor, when I first started, that's where I was going with this. He said it wouldn't work if it wouldn't work if we all didn't show up. And I totally feel you on that. There's like this piece missing that just, you know, I love playing songs and writing them at home, but I definitely miss that community.
Yeah, it's like a chance to see all your friends coming to your shows.
Yeah.
Or just people. Yeah, it's great. So hopefully that happens. I know, just people. I have a couple of shows this summer now where there'll be some people. So that's cool. I'm excited.
That is awesome.
It's happening slowly, I think. But
if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, or a young artist or any artist coming to the podcast, if you could give our listeners, our Wealthy Artist listeners, a piece of advice, what would it be to maybe an artist who's just getting started even? Yeah, maybe no matter what age you are.
Ooh, good question. That's a big one. Yeah, well, for one thing, don't take my word for anything. Follow your own muse. But you know, just something I learned is if you know there's a big part of you that needs to pursue music or needs to pursue something, you have to open space for that and go for that. And fear is natural. Fear is going to happen, and I think it's how we sort of use our fears towards what we want rather than let them like sort of debilitate us. Fear can be really powerful. It kind of tells you like something's off here, but it gives you a chance to change. So a lot of being an artist, I think, is just, I guess you might imagine like you're in a maze and you're running towards something beautiful at the end. Maybe it's like you get out of the maze, it's a big, beautiful open sky or whatever, but you're going to hit blocks along the way. And if you know that that's just going to happen and you can pivot, then you're just more in the journey and it's more fun, you know? Like when you're a kid and you're running through like the corn maze, it's like super fun, you know? But if you're...
That's true. Oh my God, that's a great example.
Yeah, you're not like scared by hitting the block. So just having that open mind and just being like, how do I evolve? How do I adapt? It's probably not going to look at all like you imagine. And I think we can probably all speak to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Man, that's amazing
that was
advice.
Great, Kai.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this has been some serious wisdom dropping on this episode.
Yeah, where can people find you, Kai?
Yeah.
For music, for therapy, for all of it, where can they find you?
Well, for music, I have a website. It's Burt, KYBURT.com, and I'll have some shows up there soon out here in the Northwest. And then I'm also on Bandcamp. I have 3 albums up there, so search me on Bandcamp. I think it's kyburt.bandcamp.com, and then I'm also on all the streaming stuff on Spotify and Apple Music. So yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, and then I guess just that's probably the best way to stay in touch. But at some point, hoping to kind of launch a new business with therapy and music in mind. So yeah, follow me on social media. I know I'm on Instagram and all that stuff too. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Kys, and you guys can help out the podcast too by checking out our Patreon if you're interested, where you can get some special behind the scenes stuff and help support us as we continue to grow this thing.
And early access to all the episodes.
Yeah, early access to all the episodes is something we're starting to. And then also make sure to leave a review on iTunes if you're enjoying this. We really appreciate it. That helps us a ton as well.
Yep, and we're on the whole YouTubes now, so make sure to hit subscribe and that notification bell so you don't miss a beat, Wealthy Artists. We're here for you. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening.
Sweet.
Thanks for having me with Sarah and Wilson. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Kys.
Yeah. Thanks so much.